To order the Siloam Springs Utility Commission meeting of 2/27/25. Well, we're going to go ahead and do a roll call. So Commissioner Hebner,
Present.
Commissioner Keck,
Here.
Commissioner Galeese is here, Commissioner Weil,
Here.
and Commissioner Carlos.
Here.
All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, would anyone like to make any changes to the minutes from October and August? All right, so I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the minutes. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and do the election for chair and vice chair. I'm okay with keep staying as chair, but if anybody else wants to take over, I'm fine. Okay, so make a motion to make me chair for 2025.
Second.
Does everyone agree?
I agree.
All right. And vice chair.
If anyone else would like to be vice chair, that would be fine with me,
I mean, I'm usually here all the time, so you guys typically don't have to worry about that. Whoever wants to be vice chair. You're just my backup in case I'm not here. So Bernadette, you want to stay as vice chair? Sure. I'll make the motion to make Bernadette the vice chair for 2025.
Second.
All right. Does everyone agree?
Agree.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may, and other commissioners, I don't know if I haven't been able to talk to the board, just to know if this is our first meeting that we're actually live streaming. So I just wanted everybody to be able to know. I didn't know if they told you before I walked in.
Yes.
So everything's just being recorded, so in the mics and or anything. But going forward, are you ready for me?
We're ready.
Ready. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for serving. One of the things that we want to do, we just want to pass along some information. And hopefully in the near future, we'll be starting a utility study. And before that, I want to do a presentation just to kind of give the Utility Commission just to kind of update where we are, where we're headed, the issues that we're seeing. And again, any feedback the Commission may have or any recommendations. But a lot of today is just conversation to give you guys updates and answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to turn it over to Phil. You want to go first?
Good evening. I kind of want to update you guys on our electric rates, our increase from GRDA, and just kind of make sure you're aware of kind of how things operate. On our PowerPoint here, I think you got it on your desk also, if I can make sure I can do this right. GRDA, they use coal, wind, hydro, and gas as their primary ways of making electricity, okay? And we have, they have been their customer since 1989, so about 35 years we've been a customer of GRDA. Well, hydro is kind of how they got started, and then they got into coal, and they built 2 coal-fired units. And then they built a gas unit. They have some wind out in western Oklahoma. And so the 2 units that they have, one of them they've already retired, and they're getting ready to retire the second coal-fired unit next year. And they needed more generation, so they decided to build another gas unit. Well, to build that, they had to pass that cost on to their customers, okay? And so that's kind of what's driving this rate increase that we're seeing from GRDA. It started in October of last year, and there's 2 primary charges that we get from GRDA. One is demand and the other is energy. And demand's about 50%. And what they did was they said, we're going to raise our demand rate 5% for the next 3 years. Every year we're going to raise it 5%. And we're going to decrease our energy rate 1%. And so our primary bill from GRDA consists of demand, energy, your base charge, and your power cost adjustment. The demand is made up of basically what it costs to build a generating unit, whether it's coal, gas, hydro, or wind, okay? And also it consists of your transmission lines to get the power from the coal-fired or the power plants to the customer using the substations and electric lines and all that, okay? That's what the demand charge consists of. The energy consists of variable expenses like chemicals, your employees, things that are variable expenses. That's what energy makes up. The basic charge is just a small, very small charge compared to other charges, but it deals with what associated with the meter maintenance, keeping it updated for the meter, and it's just, they increased it about $100 a month, so it's a very small part of the total rate increase. The power cost adjustment is something that's really want to talk about tonight. And it varies each month, okay? Keep that in mind. Your power cost adjustment varies each month, and so it basically deals with the amount of fuel that they needed to buy to make electricity, whether it's coal from Wyoming, their gas, natural gas prices, whatever they are doing, they take and for that month, they come up with a number, but it also includes our standby generation that we have to have for our system to work reliably. And so we have generators that other customers have that we pay them to have to maintain, so that if GRDA loses some generation, we can kick these things on quickly and cover our load, okay? So it's not just, the PCA is not just fuel, it also includes the capacity charge, they call it, and then the maintenance charges to upkeep these generators, okay? So just want to make sure you understand that the PCA is primarily fuel, but it also includes some maintenance cost also, okay? So GRDA, they increased their demand rate, they increased their basic charge, $100 a month, and they lowered their energy rate by 1%. The demand that we get from GRDA, that's the how they charge us per kW. Currently it's $11.11. It's going to go to $11.71. And based upon the our usage back in 2023, it's going to cost us, we have about a increased cost to us from GRDA, a little about $357,000, okay? So that's what we are going to have to absorb or pass on to our customers based upon that increase to the demand that they are passing on to us. The energy charge that we currently pay from them is 1.42 cents, got off-peak of about 0.03 cents, and so the new charge is going to those numbers, and so we'll see a decrease annually of about $20,000. But backing up, our increased cost is $357,000, a decrease of about $20,000, okay? So anyway, the basic charge is just $100 a meter, but the PCA formula, how they calculate that, did not change, okay? Now, the customers classes that we have here in Siloam Springs, we have 4 basic classes, and it's all based upon how many kilowatt hours you use. You got residential, commercial, small power, and large power. The residential rate currently is 0.101, or about 10.1 cents per kilowatt hour. The all-electric rate for our customers who have all-electric appliances is about a 40% discount from the month of October through May. Our PCA is just passed on to our customers. Whatever that charge is from GRDA, we just pass it on to our customers. We do not get any revenue from that PCA charge to the city. It's just passed on. So like if the PCA charge was $100, we divide that by how many kilowatt hours we used, and that's what your PCA charge would be to every customer per kilowatt hour, okay? And their minimum bill for residential is $13.24 per month, okay? And then if you're outside the city limits, there's a 10% adder to those customers for residential. Commercial, it's about 11.6 cents. They get the same type of discount. For all electric, PCA is passed on. The minimum bill is $16.56 per month per customer. Small power, using a little more electricity. That's how it's broken down. They have a energy charge and a demand charge. The demand charge is a rolling 15-minute window, and the highest usage during that 15 minutes for that month, they timestamp that, and that's what they multiply times 833 to get their demand charge. And then their energy is just whatever they use, and they get a break if they use over 10,000 kilowatt hours. And the PCA is just passed on. Large power, same way. They just using a lot more electricity, a little cheaper rate. They got energy and a demand charge. PCA is passed on. But notice that the large power and the small power do not have a minimum bill, okay? Your residential and your commercial do, but small and large power do not have a minimum bill. Keep that in mind. So that's our deficit that we're dealing with, about $357,000 when you take away the discount from the energy that we're dealing with from GRDA, and that will be every year that will increase that much. So getting close to $1 million we'll be losing if we don't do something about this over a 3-year period, okay?
Could you explain to the board that this rate is next 3 to 4 years? Can you then give them a time frame of what we're hearing of the possible increase?
Yeah, it's it started in October of this last year, and so to October of next year, that's the $357,000, about what it's going to be. That it's basically a 4% increase on our demand charge. Okay.
Is that through 2026, 2027?
Yes, for 3 years. So starting October of last year for a 3-year period. Okay, so. And so now we got to look at, well, what are 2 possible options that we come up with that we can deal with this increase, okay? We can pass it on to our customers through the power cost adjustment, the PCA, or we can raise our minimum bill. The kicker is, if you raise the minimum bill, you've increased rates because you've got to adjust the minimum bill. And keep in mind the small power and large power, which are not a large number, like 150 or 60 some customers, but they don't pay a minimum bill. And so what do you do there? Okay? And so we need to do this anyway. Our PCA language basically deals with fuel cost. It doesn't include the maintenance that's involved with our standby generation, the capacity charges that we have. And so we need to update our language, but if we pass the our cost from GRDA on to our customers, we need to update our language, and there would be no rate increase to our customers like a minimum bill. It's just we're passing this cost on from our supplier, okay? And the residential increase would be about a little over $2 a month for the first year. The second year would be another $2. So over a 3-year period, it'd be about a $6, almost $7 increase over that 3-year period, okay? And so the large power customers, if we pass it on through the PCA, would be about a little over $600 increase to them per month based on their usage, okay? It's based on the kilowatt hour usage. And so if we went the rate, the way of the increased minimum bill, it would be a rate increase, and you can see kind of the breakdown there. It'd be about a $3.20 increase to each customer. All we did was we looked at our projected rate increase from GRDA for that year, divided it by our customers, and we come up, if you spread it out among all of our customers, it'd be about $3.20 to each customer. So we took our power cost adjustment language. It's what it currently how it reads. Basically, it says we're going to pass on our fuel cost to our customers, and we just our lawyer created this language here and called it energy cost adjustment, which basically includes the maintenance charges that we incur from our standby generation to make it more up to date from what it was previous. Okay, so what we're asking you to do is to decide which direction you think we ought to go, and then we'll recommend that to the board, is kind of what we're asking from you tonight. And I'm available for any questions.
Was this information sent to us prior to tonight's meeting? Because I did not receive it, if so.
No.
Again, board, no, you didn't. We have been working tirelessly on this and try to get it to you. This isn't a decision that I need any time in the next, take this, process it, ask questions. We have time. One of the things that, when we started looking at this PCA, which is in my authority, I, to be honest, wasn't comfortable with the wording fuel adjustment. I guess you could look at that and say, hey, fuel adjustment is, that's on your current ordinance language. When it says that fuel adjustment, to me, it says fuel, it doesn't say electricity. And again, our net profit, we're still strong, but as you go forward, I gave you a list tonight, and it's our inventory list. And if you look at that, you can see what our costs were in 2020 compared what they are now. We have increases of anywhere from 600%, 170%, 180%. And you can see where things used to be in stock, where now they're 3 weeks to 70 weeks to 60 weeks. So things have gotten so more expensive to buy them. And as we grow as a city, we have to keep a pretty strong inventory. So again, I apologize, you didn't get a lot of this information, but we were changing, waiting for attorney reviews. But again, this isn't something the board has to make a recommendation. I want you to go look at it, chew on it, come back to us. Again, this is the very touchy subject when you look at it and hey, we want to increase rates. That's not what we're trying to do. It's passing along that cost. And by this ordinance, that gives me the authority to pass along that cost. But again, I would have to go forward to the board to allow to change this ordinance. That would go before our board. So does that answer your questions?
It does. And we are in a contract with GRDA until 2030, correct?
2042.
Was that recently renewed or? No, 2042. Do we have a buyout clause if we ever wanted to change?
I'm told in 2032, we could buy out or get out of our contract with a notice.
Does GRDA offer any discounts on any of these supplies that we have to purchase to be able to maintain the power supply from them?
As far as purchasing inventory, no. They do help us a bunch with maintenance on our lines and substations.
That's why when we looked at the PCA, that was a good option instead of going in and saying, hey, we want to do a rate increase. It's just passing along that cost. And some of the other department heads will also show you some of the significant increases they have seen going forward. And again, I'm hoping this year things will start to drop, but right now we know we're looking at least, at a 3-year increase of 4%.
How many of these supplies that we have to purchase are going to be potentially impacted by tariffs?
I have no idea.
We're already seeing some of that. I think, Christina, just to be honest with you today, if you wanted to address with some of that, but we're already seeing some of that with just in computers.
Christina Petruccius, Finance Director. So I've already received phone calls from Tommy, who does the electric inventory, telling me he's going to have to tear up some purchase requests and put them back out for quotes because of tariffs. So they won't honor what they've already quoted us. And this is just an example with numbers. Last year we bought 25 computers for just under $30,000. And the same computers this year, we can buy 15 for just over $30,000. So yeah, we're starting to be impacted by tariffs and anything that comes in from overseas, which a lot of the inventory for electric does.
We don't know what those costs are, if they're going to be here, throughout our budget year. again, if things stay low, maybe next year, we won't have to do a PCA adjustment, but it gives, changing this ordinance at least allows me the authority to pass along a cost.
When's the last time there was a rate increase for energy? Yeah, it seems like, yeah.
2016, I believe, was the last time we had a
16.
rate increase.
So why hasn't there been any increases, just gradually or whatever? Is there a reason for that, that we didn't pass along the costs or as they came along, we just kept it, so now we're kind of digging in to
Yep,
catch
sorry.
up?
Okay.
So we were actually doing increases through CPI up until 2021. Subsequent to that, there was no more CPI increase.
We did see CPI increases, but
Which
that hasn't been
CPA
since, I think, 21.
But from GRDA, our last increase from them was 2016.
So we didn't have any type of gradual every year, or any time there was these big fees of things, we never passed those fees on. It's always just been the same since 2016, as far as rates go.
Well, as far as our rate from GRDA,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
It's interesting, back in 1989, our wholesale cost to GRDA was 3.3 cents per kilowatt hour, and this last month, it was 5.1 cents. So that's the increase we've had over the 35 years. So
How does that compare to other companies or other providers in the area?
I really don't know. I think it's real competitive, from what I've been told. I haven't seen nothing lately, what it is. But we kind of, everybody keeps each other in checks and balances. And so our contract with GRDA is what they call a wholesale power contract, which means they supply not only the power, but the transmission to us, and they follow our load for us. And so what you get into is like a lot of municipals, like there's I think 15 other municipals in Arkansas like us that have their own power. They have to buy transmission and provide and pay for a lot of the services independent of their power supplier. And so they might be able to buy electricity a little bit cheaper, but then they have to go out and pay for transmission to get power into them. It adds up. So you got to be careful when you start comparing what one supplier cost is versus the package deal, if you will.
Not apples to apples. Now, when our contract does come up in 2042, are we going to be able to renew that contract under that same terms? Or would we be forced to potentially go to that type of system where we would have to invest in more infrastructure?
That's an open.
I probably won't be right here, I'll just tell you.
No, it's a ways off. I was just,
Yeah. They've, GRDA is made up of primarily municipals, okay? And they have an industrial park over by Pryor. And so, but they're real sensitive to municipals. And so that's a public power company. And so I think they'll be real aware of the needs that we have. And so in the past, they've provided us 2 large substations, which either one of them by themselves can handle our load. So we have a lot of redundancy in our system. So it's we're set for growth.
Again, we want to give you this information to be able to look back and, maybe we come back next meeting, we can talk about it more next month. But it's one of these things that we had this increase in October, so we're seeing this increase every month for this year. And I'm getting more prepared. We're budgeted this year, so we're in good shape because we've already budgeted, as Christina could tell you, going forward. It's not like dire need, but we need to start making plans, especially some other areas that we're seeing significant CPI and we're seeing increases. And keep in mind with the PCA, and that's something that I've liked because it's doesn't hit the resident as hard. We're looking at a $2 to $3 increase, which is $24 to $36 per home per year, which is very affordable. But again, we all get increases and we have to pass it along somewhere. But my big concern is this year, then next year, then next year, and if we don't do something now. In the utilities, you know, we've already planned to do a utility study, so that's gonna tell us a lot where we're at. You know, I mean, are we good, are we low, are we too high, do we need to do a decrease? We won't know till we get that study back, but, you know, that's kinda where we're at.
When is that planned for to happen? That utility rate study?
So last time we did a study, was it 3 years? Kevin, you wanna hit that one? I think it was 3 years ago.
Kevin Moore, Public Works Director. The last study was in 2020, and the last rate increase would have been in 2021 just through CPI, and then that option was removed from the code. It is budgeted for this year. We've actually already done a request for qualifications and have gotten most of those back, extended due to the weather because the deadline was last week, but we'll be making a selection probably in March and then getting that before the board to start that process this year. Thank you.
You want to go ahead into your presentation? Is there any other questions for Phil? And I appreciate what electric and everyone does and appreciate.
Yeah, I just
your
had one.
time.
So is this gonna be a new charge, or is there already a PCA charge on the bills?
We already have a PCA charge on the bill.
Okay, so
It'll
it's
be-
that would just increase?
Increase.
Okay.
And it would increase by around $3, a little over $3 per year. Is that the rate that the one that we're talking about? Or that's the minimum bill that would increase? So are those two
The
separate?
PCA would be the $2 in,
28 cents a month.
A month?
yeah, a month.
On top of the minimum bill increase? So both of those things would go together?
No.
No.
We're,
One or the
we're
other.
trying to decide,
one or the
right,
other.
one or the
Okay,
other.
that's
And that
what I
was my
was-
question.
yeah.
separate.
But in your opinion, the PCA is less for the people, for the
Yes.
taxpayer, the PCA option is less.
The biggest impact that Phil and I, when we talk about this in staff, is probably the commercial.
Right.
Because depending on their usage, they use so much more. So that could be around 600. Again, these are estimated, and we're thinking $2 to $3. We don't see it. Your customers times the percentage is pretty easy math, but we definitely think the PCA would be the best for our residents and the cheapest route, passing along the cost.
The other benefit before we kind of shift gears is that if that cost goes down for us from one month to another, then it would go down for the customers as well.
Right, because that can be
'Cause it will
adjusted.
vary monthly.
Right.
Exactly.
Would there be a cap on it as far as like the maximum increase per month?
No.
Could there be a cap set?
Well, what you want to do is, see, it's based upon what the energy cost was for that previous month. Like the Uri event, it went crazy. And we was going to pass that $4 million on to our customers, but the board voted to absorb it. And so like, you know, you have no idea what's going to happen in the market. And that's why, it used to be GRDA's powering cost was only adjusted every 6 months. But the cost of energy got so crazy, they had to do it every month. And what they do is, they bill us more during times of the year and then less at other times so that it's more stable throughout the year. And the customers like a stable number. They don't want it to be crazy every month, have no idea. And so GRDA, they'll absorb some losses and then they'll overcharge during the time of the year to try to keep it just as stable as possible.
Well, and that's kind of what I was asking about with the PCA increase. To stabilize that, could there just be a maximum cap? Because I know that you're saying that the average could be $2.28, but could the average be $15 or $17? It seems like that's,
It's just whatever the board votes to do.
We've talked about things, we've said, instead of doing a PCA the next 3 years, because we know this increase is coming for the next, at least we've already had it, we know we got at least 2 more years of increase. You know, we could go in there now and just say, all right, it's gonna be $7, and we won't have a PCA increase for the next 3 years. Again, that's up to the recommendation of utility, whatever we want to recommend to the board. To me, in the times right now, is it better just to do maybe a $30 increase across the board for citizens, or we do a 90, 90 a year? So again, that's for your recommendation, but we could do something like that. We've talked about it. Like, if we know it's $2, so we can just go ahead and say, hey, it's $6. and then we won't do a PCA increase, or we just wait to see what happens.
Would it be possible for us to see over the last, like, 12 months what the cost from GRDA has been for the PCA, so that we can have an idea of, like, what the fluctuation would be for residents?
We haven't had an increase.
Gotcha, okay.
I haven't since I've been, I think I'm 18 months and haven't had one, and Christina could tell you if we've had a PCA. And we'll let our financial, she'll answer a lot better than I.
So the way we calculate the PCA, it's really how much it impacts your bill is going to depend on how much energy you use. So if you have a 6-bedroom house that's over, 2,500 square feet, then you're gonna have more than or $2.28 increase on your bill. But if you have an apartment and your average, bill is relatively low, you're not using a lot of electricity, then you're not gonna see $2.28 increase. But the PCA does vary every single month, and I have a spreadsheet where I can show you what it has done over the past 12 months. But they're very, what's a good way to put this? There are not significant fluctuations from month to month. But I'll be happy to put together a graph for you so that you can see what that looks like over a 12-month period.
Is that something the board would like to see?
That'd be helpful, yeah.
And also, so if a customer right now, current situation, if they see a drastic increase on their bill, what is the charge to come out and look at their meter or anything like that?
Usually we'll go out there one time to look at it, but if they call repeatedly and there's no problem and we haven't identified a problem and we've pulled their meter and we've checked it, then we charge them like $25.
So the first time is free? Okay.
So really, the only time it could fluctuate, like do a big impact, if it was something like stormy,
Yes.
crazy, everything was crazy high. That's really the
Or-
only time it would.
Well, it could, in theory, increase significantly if LNG just skyrocketed, right? I mean, that's possible, but usually, like he said, they try to levelize those costs over a 12-month period.
I think along with that, it would be interesting to see just kind of like a breakdown per average square foot, maybe 1,000 and under, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, kind of on up what the average bill is. Because I think that would also give us an idea of the average increase to their bill based on their square foot. and
Or the winter
usage.
storm or after?
Probably both, honestly.
And I'm not really sure what it would take to get that because that's not in our utility billing system. Like, we don't know. I mean, we can tell you if it's an apartment, but we can't tell you how many square feet is in each building.
That might just be difficult based on age of house and,
Right.
and just,
They have newer appliances, old appliances.
yeah, do you have 6 kids that leave every light on, or is it a
Or
elderly
like
couple?
mine, where I have a 4-bedroom house and there's 2 old people running around in there. I mean, like,
That's something, just say we do a PCA, and then we get another increase in October. It gives us a time frame to see what kind of increases, get those phone calls, talk to our citizens, and we'll know, what was the average. But when we do our numbers, we think it's gonna be $2 to $3. But like Christina's saying, bigger houses, more square footage could be a little higher depending on their usage. But again, we may have to maybe not do a PCA going in there. That's why I don't know if throwing an overall number would be good, saying, hey, we're gonna do a 6 or 8, or, going that
and-
route.
So commercial is considered that large power bill? Is that commercial properties?
Commercials like commercial is just your Wendy's, that Subway, things like that. It's based on how much kilowatt hours they use. And so small power, they're using a little bit more electricity, cabinet shops, things like that. Then large power, Simmons, JBU, things like that.
Your Gates, your Simmons, your bigger companies.
But one thing is interesting, the average residential use of electricity nationwide is 1,000 kilowatt hours per month. In Siloam Springs, it's a little over 800 kilowatt hours residential. That's the average usage, okay? So some folks use more and some less, depends on what your square foot is, of course, how well insulated and all that, but that's what we based our numbers on. The $2.20 was on the average usage, okay? So we're a little bit high if you go by the average in Siloam Springs, okay?
So Phil, we're around 200 under the national average then?
Yeah.
Usage.
If we do pursue the PCA increase, I think it'd be worth a discussion to look at putting that cap on in case of severe weather where we're heavily impacted, like that 4 million, and treat that as a separate event to vote on separately instead of just automatically pushing that down.
Definitely something the commission could make as a recommendation.
I would also just note that they billed us separately for that. They didn't bill us in our regular bill as part of our PCA for that. And when we were considering passing that along, we were considering passing it along over like, I think 36 months or something like that, not
All at once.
all at once.
Yeah.
I think most utility companies did it 5 years, 3 years within.
Now, if we decided to do something like this, would we also have the ability to say, base this off of income? So if people meet low income guidelines, would they not have to receive this increase?
Absolutely not. We are not allowed to ask them how much money they make.
Illegal.
Plus then other people have to make up for that difference
Right.
somewhere, so.
Just wondering about people on fixed incomes. It just seems like that is a very volatile variable, it could be, and that would be my,
Well, I'll give you guys a graph, and if you want, I think it goes back several years, and I can show you what it does over the years, and it's not very volatile for the PCA. But it would go up slightly if we changed what we're defining PCA as, and that's where the $2.28 a month comes in for the residents.
What is
It's
the
kind of like,
current,
I'm sorry.
what's the current age in our ordinance now for being eligible to get that discount on your utility bill? Is it 65?
I believe so.
Right, I know I've talked to other people where, we all got letters from Black Hills Energy and other places saying, hey, this is our increase. I think mine was $10 somewhere else. Folks in West Siloam, they had their water, that you get those letters and those increases. I think ours was much, much smaller, just passing along that cost. So again, it's just for you guys to look at this information. We'll get you anything that you want to get where you can make a recommendation going forward. Kevin, you're in.
Yes, Kevin, and welcome. This is our first meeting with you, so congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited to work with you all. Just to start kind of giving you an overview of Public Works. So engineering has moved from community development to Public Works this year. That's new. Infrastructure and streets, which we won't touch on tonight. And then water and wastewater and water services. And so how that's structured is water and wastewater each have their own sections of the budget, and they each pay for half of the water services budget as well as the administrative budget. And so water and wastewater, they have admin, plant, and their portion of water services. And so typically these are each kind of broken up out at the plant. And looking at 2021, which again, this is the last year that we had a CPI increase. Revenues were about $4.5 million, about $8.5 million between wastewater and water. And you'll see the different administration costs and the plant and water services costs. That includes salaries. I did exclude the water treatment plants because that was such a large purchase. So that's excluded from the 2021 and the 2025 that we'll look at because that skews the numbers kind of deceptively downward. So looking at the wastewater plant, just to give you an idea, we're looking at about a 22% increase from 2021 to 2025 in our revenues, and that's mostly because of the added users, because of course our rates have not gone up. So that's added usage, new industries, new residential. Our costs have gone up by more than 30%. in those areas, and particularly things like chemicals at the plant have gone up year over year. We've had to do multiple purchases each year or select different vendors based off of their availability after bids. And then we'll also look at our sludge rates. So the inorganics that they have to haul off the site that aren't discharged from the wastewater treatment plant, the tipping fees at the landfill have gone up drastically for those over the last 4 years. And then out at the water treatment plant, again, this excludes the principal. Seen about a 17% increase. It's much cheaper to treat 1 million gallons of water than it is to treat 1 million gallons of wastewater. Those chemical costs have not gone up as much as they have on the wastewater side, but we've still seen a large increase in some of those expenses. The 70% at the plant, there have been added positions. They've added a night shift position to be fully staffed on the night shift, have multiple people out there for safety. And so that's skewing those numbers a little bit, but the trend has been close to 30% over the last 4 years in our costs. One of those to really just kind of dig into those sludge rates. So this is our fee for hauling and tipping at the landfill. And so back in 2021, trucking and the fee itself added up to just shy of $40 a ton. And we're looking at about 2,400 tons a year. And so we were spending $96,000 in disposing of that sludge. And then now in 2025, just using an average number over those last 4 years with the new fee that we do know of $58 a ton, we're looking at almost a $60,000 increase for this year's budget from 4 years ago.
Evan, if you could go back to that slide. Commissioners, do you have any questions there? What I'm trying to show there is, again, this is kind of a PCA or a CPI that they sent our way. When you can see just in 2023 where we were getting $33 for sludge, and that's the sludge from the wastewater plant. And then you can turn 2 years later, we're looking at $47.24, for the sludge. That's a significant increase of around a little over $14 somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, none of that has been passed along, but just making you aware, that's part of that increase we are seeing on our side.
And those have been added costs to the contract and then also through CPI. So we were notified in February of last year's CPI increase, and that's that $58 a ton that we're looking at there.
Is there a fee that is passed along to new builders or developers? As far as the impact, the additional impact as far as services?
We currently do not have a development impact fee for water or wastewater. We do have a tap fee just to cover the materials and the labor for actually the installation at the line itself, but no impact fee for the system.
Is that something that's ever been considered?
That's something, if we're careful about it, we are allowed to do under state law, and that's something that we're looking at. So I've talked with our staff, and so we're not looking for a rate increase partway through the year. We plan to wait for the rate study this year to determine that, so that you all are aware, under state law, the water portion of that rate study is required to be approved by the board, or else the city enters financial distress. And so the water portion would be approved, essentially required by the state. And then the electric, wastewater, and sanitation would be studied as well as part of the rate study this year. Those rates wouldn't be required to be approved, but we'll, of course, be asking for those as well. We advertised back in January with a due date of last Friday. Obviously, with inclement weather, we've had to extend that. And we have received 7 firms as of today that have submitted qualifications for that, and staff will review those over the coming month, and then we'll enter negotiations with that firm and get a contract before the board. And they'll be focusing on the capital projects that we know about, things that we know in our system that are needed, wages, everything from the intake all the way to the treatment plants, the distribution system, towers, operation and maintenance costs for for all of our systems will be considered in that. And they'll meet with you all as a utility commission. We've asked for at least one meeting as part of the contract for that, and then for a board workshop and board meeting as well, and then for them to submit to the Arkansas National Resource Commission. So, and we're anticipating that in March to begin that process. And that's, our estimate is probably 8 to 10 months, 8 to 12 months. So we'll be looking at towards the end of the year for the results of that rate study to try to take those through. I'm available for any questions if you have them.
How is your,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
How do you cover your deficit on your wastewater side? Is that absorbed through the revenue made on your water side, or where does that come from?
That's general fund.
Basically, at the end of the year, all of the utilities are collapsed into one fund for financial statement purposes. And typically what happens is there is net revenue across the three of them, mainly due to electric.
Oh, I see in here the mention of maintenance costs. So this doesn't really have a lot to do with this presentation that you just did, but I just had some questions. I saw that there were some letters sent to citizens who may have lead pipes. And we were
Yes.
wondering if you could expound on that a little bit, and if whenever it talks about these costs, if that would be something that you're wanting to replace in the future, and if that would be where that would hit this budget.
Absolutely. So that is a separate requirement that's been passed down nationally after the Flint, Michigan incident. The U.S. has really gotten involved in trying to eliminate pipes. So they've left it up to each state, at least in Arkansas's case, it's up to the state, and then the cities have reported to the state the homes on that list. Basically, anything constructed prior to a certain date is assumed to have lead at this point until we verify otherwise. So we have 2 years for that verification process that staff will be starting to knock down that list. And then after the 2 years is up, so in 2027, we'll be looking at actually having to replace 10% a year. So over the next 10 years, replacing all of those lines. We are required to do from our main to the meter, and then we're required to offer from the meter to the base of the structure itself. So those things would be included in the rate study. It does not say that we're required to cover the cost from the meter to the residents, so trying to come up with a way, whether it's like a lead service district or some sort of grant funding or something like that to cover that private portion so that the public's not bearing that cost. Those are things that we still need to look into, but that's kind of where we're at in that process right now.
Do you know how many homes or residences were impacted by that, or just an estimate? I know that you probably don't have the number right off the top of your head.
We sent letters to 2,700 residences. Some of those were false positives that we know were constructed after that date, but they were on the list, and so we had to mail those out anyway, and so those will be easy to remove. And we're required to re-notify each year until they're off the list, whether that's through verification or replacement.
What year did you say?
2027 is when we would start the actual replacement.
What year the houses were based off of the,
I believe it was 87. It's when the lead ban was passed in Arkansas.
So for those residences that were impacted or sent letters where they could have potential issues, there has not been testing at those residences to see what actually comes out of the tap there?
The city has not yet. We do random testing, and we're actually on the reduced testing schedule because of we've not had a lead detection on those tests over the years. We have pointed residents to U of A and some other testing companies where they can basically get a special water bottle for the treatment, and then they can collect a sample themselves and send it off to be tested to see if they have an issue. And then they can get filters or something like that in the meantime until they can actually get their lines replaced. Because we're talking about the plumbing in the houses as well. And so the main lines were never constructed with lead, so the main lines aren't the concern. It's the service line from the tap to the home and then the plumbing within the home.
Our grant person, is that something that they're looking into right now? Maybe potential grants for people to apply for either filters or filtration systems or, of course, the eventual replacement of those pipes?
We haven't yet because we're still eliminating from that 2,700. And so once we have a grasp on what that number is, then we'll proceed with grant requests. We also have to do random testing of ones that were off the list to ensure that they were off the list properly. There's quite a bit involved over the next 10 years or so that we'll be looking at. So staffing, materials, things like that will be covered in the rate study because it's going to tie up 2 people basically every year for the next 10 years.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you explaining all of that.
Yeah, glad to do it. Any other questions?
Jason? Any questions?
Jason Davis, Public Service Director. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let's see if I can get this up here. Okay.
Little Jason straight up.
Okay, how do I get that up there? Gotcha. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is some of the rates that we have, the increases in inflation that we're dealing with on the sanitation side. So what I've given you here is the examples of what Siloam Springs' current rates are for their monthly bill and their trash cans, as well as what Fayetteville is, just kind of give you a comparison. So right now, a 64-gallon trash can is $17.50 per month and $7.35 for seniors. 96-gallon is $22.02 and $11.87 for seniors. We charge $2.60 for extra bags. Fayetteville's pricing for a 64 is $18.94, and for a 96-gallon is $26.89 with no senior rate. Fayetteville extra bag charges are $8.39 per bag. So over the past year, Siloam Springs has experienced a significant increase in municipal solid waste disposal, along with a $3 per ton fee hike. And there's also a CPI increase on that as well that we also got hit with. And in 2024, the city collected over 33,000 tons, and if the current trend continues, we are looking for 2025 to see 34 to 35,000 tons, and that will be adding an extra $100,000 to our fee or our what we have to pay for disposal. In 2021, our yearly tonnage was almost 31,000. In 2024, we were at 33,500 tons per year. To give you an example of the cost that we have to come up with for the trucks and expenses, a rear load 20-yard trash truck in 2020 cost $149,000. In 2025, it's now $238,000. Front load trash truck, which is a commercial trash trucks that pick up the commercial businesses, in 2020 was $249,000, and now it's $400,000.
And Commissioners, just when we're giving you these numbers, we're just trying to, if you're making the same revenue and everybody, well, what's increasing? That's why I gave you that long list of the increases. We wanted you to see this also where you're making the same revenue, and when I hear things, the reserves are, it's because things have increased and have gotten so expensive, and we haven't passed that cost along. Again, because our numbers have been solid, but again, these increases are starting to hit that.
Absolutely. And the Rotopack residential truck, that is what we collect residential trash with, and in 2020 is $260,000. Now we're at $400,000. And I anticipate those numbers to continue to climb over the next few years, especially with the metal prices being what they are. And the lead times on these trucks are anywhere from 12 months to 15 months, 2 years out on some of these. So those numbers can really fluctuate with us. I don't have a whole lot. We did do some increases on our side with the commercial rates, but we did not do any increases on residential. And we haven't had an increase on residential, I believe, since 21. So,
Jason, can you go back to the increases of the landfill?
yes.
How many of these trucks do you buy, like, per year or whatever?
So right now, I'm trying to, when I first got here and met with Alan and we toured the facility and tried to figure out some game plans, we had a lot of trucks that were in very distress. So what we had to do to get things up to par is we leased our trucks out, okay? That's not something I see us doing forever, but we had to do what we had to do to get to where we are. So
Some of the equipment we were using, Ms. Cammy, was obsolete. They weren't safe. They were doing the front-end loaders, and we wanted to make sure our workers were safe, our customers were safe. So we had, and again, it's just wear and tear. That it's just, again, we had other needs in other places, but sanitation became, there's some serious problems that we had to fix.
absolutely. But on
I see
average,
now, most of them are.
on average, about 7 years is a good lifespan for a trash truck.
So I know last year there were 2 new balers purchased for recycling.
Yep.
And I didn't see any recycling information in the presentation to see where we're at there, if we've made additional money for recycling.
We have,
or-
but we haven't got I haven't got all the year-end stuff in.
Okay.
But I will tell you, just this week alone, I got a phone call from the broker that I use, and they're now offering us $20 over premium pricing because of the material that we're kicking out so much better now.
That's
Our cardboard's
fantastic.
so much cleaner. One of the things, commissioners, where a lot of times, a lot of people called, why'd you take up our big baskets? That's where all the cardboard. What happens is those cardboards sit in there and they get rained on, and you put more cardboard. It takes so long to fill them up. By the time we usually pick them up, all the cardboard underneath is not premium. It's not even used, it becomes garbage. So that's why we went to the system we are. Can you give them a number, how much we've increased in recycling? I can't off the top of my head. I mean, I've kind of tasked him with doubling that, and I think we're getting close.
I am very proud of what we did. We had some numbers that were very high on increases. And again, I don't have it in front of me, but we did very, very well. And if we continue the trend, I think we'll double what we did in 23 for 25. I don't know if we'll double for 24, what we did in 24, but we're on some good paces to have some major increases on
What
that.
can I have Jason too is also get you that for your next meeting, or at least
Absolutely.
email that to you, or because it's very helpful information where that's helped increase our revenue there, and really proud of that staff.
Absolutely. And the way that the brokers work, okay, so obviously the economy plays a big factor in that. And with tariffs, we could see some impacts on that because some recycling was going overseas in different areas, right? So a lot of that's going to be stopping. It's going to be all done in the States. Now, that may drive down our cost instead of getting that higher revenue. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But we are working on a few things. We're trying to get some other commodities brought in, like our 3 through 7s that don't typically have much of a market. We found a market for them now, so we're looking into that and to see if we can capitalize on that. The issue with that is with 3 through 7s, it's very hard to recycle those, and a lot of people don't like messing with them. And if I open a contract and start bringing in 3 through 7s and letting the citizens bring that in, and now I got nowhere to take them, that's my issue. So I'll make sure that we have a good game plan before we just start something that we can't finish.
And just for the commissioners too, a lot of this was the balers that we were able to buy. The board allowed us to get 2 more balers, and that's helped really speed up what we're doing. We're recycling a lot more cardboard and cans, and it's a lot
Absolutely.
cleaner and doesn't fall apart.
So I do have a question. If there was an increase proposed amount, could we also consider a credit of some type for people who do recycle? Because I know that we have a lot of residents who do not. And it seems like if we had more residents that did recycle, we would have less that would go to the landfill.
You're absolutely right.
And really reduce our costs.
So that's what we are doing is called a pay-as-you-throw program, okay? This is basically what it comes down to. We need to incentivize people to recycle, okay? So the idea would be we put the $2.60 or whatever per extra bag. I'll give you a free bin to reduce that. And that just comes with education, and that's what we're trying to do. And in the future, we'll try to get a full-time educator here that can go around to the residents, knock on doors, hand out pamphlets, and inform them what they can and can't take, and how much trash is actually in your can versus how much recycling's in there. So what we'll do is a waste audit with it. We've got it planned for the spring, actually, this year. And we'll go and we'll hit each zone. We'll pick a couple families that want to volunteer to be part of this waste audit. We'll go through the garbage, show how much of it actually could be collected and recycled and how much of it is actually trash, which I could reduce them from a 96 to a 64 gallon, and then we'll pick up the recycling and get the revenue collection from that.
One of the things that Jason's trying to do now, we don't do a lot of recycling in our apartment complexes and in different duplexes, things like that. We're trying to get them involved. It would be very helpful in the recycling to get more people recycling, that more or less goes to landfill. But I love that idea. That's something we'll,
Like cardboard is hard because you have to take it in. It's not picked up or whatever, so, right?
Well, we pick up cardboard, absolutely. As long as it's flattened out.
Put it in a bin?
If you break it down and put it in the bin, yeah.
Takes it in.
That's right. There's a lot of people that really recycle, and I see them every day. They put a lot of work into that.
Absolutely.
And it would be nice to have some kind of incentive for, just have to look at it. That intrigues me. We can do that. This number that I had him pull this back up, I just want you to kind of understand, when we look at a $3 increase, so if you just, in 2024, if you're looking at $33,000, we're looking at a $99,000 to $100,000 increase per year. And the more tonnage we have and everything that comes in, that increases the more money that it's getting very expensive to take things to the landfill.
Right.
We're finding, we have a study going on right now on waste energy, and we're trying to find other avenues for, my concern is when the landfill fills up, because we've heard different projections anywhere from 2 years to, 3 years to 4 years to sooner. And I know there's a House bill right now possibly, for shutting landfills down. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
So, figuring out what we would do if that happens. Because at the end of the day, we have to take our garbage somewhere, because my number one phone call during the winter storm was garbage. Probably anywhere from 60 to 100 calls per day.
I was going to say, and thank you for picking up extra bags.
Absolutely.
My neighbor had about 12 bags out there.
Yeah, we found a few out there like
He
that.
had a bunch.
Absolutely.
So I know he's grateful.
You could probably benefit from this
We're all stuck in the
recycling
house. We had nothing
program.
I would love to say his name, but I'm not going to.
And that's what, I haven't actually introduced the pay-as-you-throw program yet. We're still building the sanitation department to where we need it. But a pay-as-you-throw program is what we're really wanting to lean toward and get that education out there for the recycle bins. I'll give them as many recycle bins as you want.
And in these conversations, you see it. I had just some of the revenue that we see and that goes out. But if you look at Jason, and we're just making up numbers, nothing solid. But let's say we're $100,000 increase. Phil's looking at a $357,000 increase. Now I'm at $457,000. Kevin's looking at a $30,000 to $40,000 increase. Now we're at $500,000 in increases that we're pulling from somewhere else, plus the increases of what things are costing.
Right.
And again, it's just something for us to look at for our future as we grow as a city, to come up with solutions to bring to our board.
We were very aggressive with our contract for the sanitation department, and we got a very, very good contract with Waste Management, where we didn't see a huge increase on that, but it will continue to get a higher increase with the potential of the landfill closing. We will see those increases, because that is the only landfill that we can take to that's close by right now.
Just so you know, we do have some that we have green energy, that we have contracts that, a lot of our companies that we're actually going over to the Cherokee Nation or
Savannah.
The Savannah,
Yeah.
that we're trying to get people to go green, and we're constantly trying to find ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have we ever thought about just inviting any of our local state representatives to these meetings. I think it might be helpful for them to hear the tariff impacts and just everything that we are, or that you're experiencing. Because I think it would be great to have our representatives, and
Absolutely.
that way they could represent us at the state level to say, hey, these are impacts that are happening in our cities, they're happening in yours across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I plan on speaking with Steve Unger and Robin Lundstrom pretty soon, because they were the two that actually put the House Bill 1576 on. And they're actually reached out to me to look over their bill this time before they send it, thank goodness. So I'll be able to see the bill before it goes out, and we'll be talking with them about some of that stuff. And
This isn't a Siloam Springs problem. This is a national problem and across the state. That and sewer and different things like that as we see growth.
yes,
So, any other
Everybody
questions?
has to take trash somewhere, so.
you're absolutely right. That's one thing. Everybody produces about 4 pounds a day is the average.
And a school program might be really great, because sometimes that's
We're
where
working on
it's
that.
gonna start, is
You're
that,
absolutely right.
yeah, kids hear about it in school and go home and,
Yep, we've done a couple of presentations already, and we plan on doing several more this year.
awesome, thank
That's
you.
very interesting. We're getting out here to education, trying to educate people how to recycle. I like the video that Chavez just did, if you saw it, because one of the issues that we have, people are putting their garbage cans too close to the mailboxes. When those arms come out.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that, we hit a mailbox. I did that on purpose. But, we hit it, we damaged one, we try to fix it, but it helps us. And we're trying to get our drivers to do better, because especially some of our seniors, we go out there and they get in a hurry and they dump stuff and they throw the basket and the wind blows it. And so we're trying to sit it down and make it to make it convenient for the people that are really trying hard to recycle. And we do appreciate them very, very much.
And some of the new software that we're looking at is going to help a lot of this, that we'll have a breadcrumb trail. We'll be able to take pictures of houses if it was overflowing mist or blocked, or if we pull up on a stop and the mailbox is already knocked over, we're not to blame for it, because we can now have a live stream picture of that and be able to go back up to 90 days looking at that. So
Trying to update the technology again, because I've been there where I see the truck and I rush out there really quick and I just miss it, But a lot of people, some people will call and say, the truck just drove right by me. So again, it's putting a picture to hold our drivers accountable. Make
Absolutely.
sure we're doing the right things. And
absolutely.
So I can put pizza boxes in my red recycle box?
Just no pizza.
No pizza, no.
Yes.
Well, I don't ever have any leftover pizza. This is empty boxes.
The only cardboard that we cannot take and recycle is waxed cardboard, okay? And that is your milk cartons or orange juice cartons, things like that. Those can't be recycled with your regular cardboard. They have to be stripped and then recycled, and we don't have a means to be able to do that.
We don't recycle glass, correct?
We do recycle glass, but not curbside.
Oh, okay. Mine's
Yes.
always left in my bucket.
That's something that we will look at for the future, but right now, we don't have the infrastructure to be able to handle taking glass curbside.
It cans, yes, too.
Cans and water bottles I'm good at.
Yes.
Any other
My wine
questions?
bottles have to go in the
Are you,
trash.
with the cost of metal being high, are you considering collecting mixed metal in addition to the aluminum, steel, and tin?
So we do at the transfer station now.
Okay.
Yes, we do. And last year, I let go the other metal recycling company that we did go with and went with a different one, and doubled our revenue on that, going that way, so.
I had a question on the pay-as-you-throw that you're kind of looking into. Have you considered alternate route options? For example, we only fill our can every 2 weeks. We just don't have a lot of trash.
So when I got here, there was some of that going on with the commercial. And what happens is you'll have a guy pick it up this week, forget about, or doesn't go the next week, but forget about it the third week. And now so I've got a rule that every stop gets touched once a week, regardless, period. That keeps us straight. That gets us on an actual schedule. Everybody knows what day they're going now, instead of just here or there.
Hard to plan the
whatever.
routes that way.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
understood.
Any other questions at all? And Commissioners, thank you for your service. I want to get you more involved. You'll probably see me more at more meetings, because as we go forward and start, looking at this utility study, and we look at things, your input is very important that I can bring to the board and support your recommendations, and, I respect your opinions, so I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Okay?
Go ahead and make a motion to
I
adjourn.
will
the
turn it
meeting.
back over to you, Mr. Herbie.
All right, meeting adjourned.